Everyone. Hey, this is Greg. I'm gonna do a quick video. I saw something this week on the Arcane Libraries Discord under the Solo Dark channel where they were talking about party size on your for solo play, and it was a really interesting discussion about how do you play one, do you play a party of four, how do you do something to how do you run your game? Because if you run one character, it could be they could die quick. Maybe you don't get the fun part of combat, because if you do that, then you'll have to lower the monsters, and you feel like you might be kind of cheating the dungeon or something of that nature. And or if you run a party, it might be too many characters for you to manage if you're trying to do a narrative story, like you want to give spotlight. I think that's what a lot of why when people do solo and they run one character, they're like spotlighting the adventures of like this one character, and it's kind of easier to kind of do the interactions, the NPC actions, and building a career, a story for this one character seems a lot easier. But if you throw four on and you're trying to do each one of them, you feel like you might have to come up with a different story for each one, and you have to do um, a different narrative. If you're someone who does like voices when you like to play, even though you're by yourself, you still might want to do those type of things. Um, it's just a difficulty of 4-on-1, and also you're also GMing, so it's really kind of like you're running 5 things at one time. And so I thought I'd do a little bit of video of just to tell you what I kind of do. And because when you do, Shadow Dark is old school. And one of the things about old school modules and old school adventuring is, and she talks about it in the book as well, is that not everything is a combat. However, encounters and combat is such a fun part or a critical part to most people's adventuring and soloing, that you want to have that as part of your adventure, right? Being able to have some excitement in it, so it's not always just interactions between NPCs and stuff of that nature, and you know um, always just sneaking open doors, unless that's what you want out of your character. Like, let's say you're doing a thief and you're running a thief character, rogue character, and you're breaking into houses and breaking into businesses or whatever you're doing. So sneaky's part of it, and you definitely want to stay out of combat unless you're in an advantage. That's part of it as well. But and that was kind of what part of the comment that I put on there was the fact that it kind of depends on what you want out of your game, because you can always set up the adventure where your character is only going to take adventures. Like if you're running a solo character player, and you create an adventure with it, if you already have it in mind that, hey, I'm just going to play one character, maybe add an NPC, maybe there's someone he picks up along the way, or he has a hireling or something like that, like maybe just 2 characters. You would just say the your character wouldn't take something that was too dangerous for him. So if someone offers him a quest and he's like, man, that's a job for multiple people, not for me, you could justify um, making the adventure one in which it's just one character, and then you can justify the fact of, okay, there's not going to be number of appearing monsters could be 3 or 4. Well, I want to make it 1 or 2, just because he wouldn't do that, and he wouldn't, he or she, my character, would not go on an adventure without that, without unless it's just someone who's like Mission Impossible or something. And so you will and you will do so you can justify that behavior by doing it that way. And the other thing is like if you're running 4 characters, because I have 3 in my campaign that I'm running. I have Serene, Hamel, and Imrib, and I started with 4, and I had Mill, and then he ended up dying, and Imrit almost died, and so he came back. And so I have three characters, and I have done both on my channel. I have run most of the time. I run all three of them together on adventures, and then I have done separate sessions where I just run, one character. And I found all of it to be, uh, I found it to be fine with me because it's easy for me to say, like I said earlier, if I'm running just a Shireen adventure, she's only going to try to take something that she could probably do by herself. She wouldn't put herself at risk unnecessarily. And and it gets to one thing about why I decide, you know, why I make that decision about her making a decision if it's by herself or the party goes or however I want to do my game, and that is a sense of realism. Um, to me, now again, I'm playing a fantasy game, and I know that it's not real, but I mean, you can always have a discussion about like what's real or not. Like I read books and you read fiction, and there's a feel to a book, a really, really good book. It just has a sense of reality to it. Like it's almost a nonfiction book, even though we know it's a fiction book. So that idea of real, but it's something that to me, that's what I want in my adventures. I want it to feel like I am really engaged in a real world in my character and is part of that world. And by doing, and so my adventures have to kind of fit that narrative. Not all, like again, I know I play a fantastical fantasy game that's set in a fictional world, but I still want that feel to it because really the reason why I play games, especially role-playing games, um, I don't know if it's something I've mentioned before, but when I was younger and I started playing them, it really had to do with playing a hero. Learning what it's like to have, the knight that fights the dragon or the hero that goes into darkness and you know, saves the town people or the princess or whatever. That's really um, has been why I read a lot of the books I read, the fantasy books I read. I like heroic fantasy. That's why I think I like David Gemmell. I love his books because even though his characters are flawed, it's because everybody has a flaw in life. He still is striving to be heroic, and I love that about him. And so, and I want that in my game. I do not want to play. I'm not going to play evil characters. I'm not going to play morally gray characters. I'm going to play characters who struggle with striving towards virtue, but that doesn't make someone morally gray in my world. So, and there's some really good videos about that and alignment and stuff. But that's just what I want. I mean, I'm not telling people how they should play the game. I'm just saying that's what I want in my game. And so, so when I sit down, I am going to adjust the game to fit realism, a more realistic way of playing. And and so if you're going to play, don't, just kind of think about it's okay if you're going to play one solo character and you automatically back it up a little bit. Now, there should be times in your adventure where you can't handle something, and maybe that's when you go, oh man, I'm in this dungeon, I have to run and flee, and your character goes back to town and maybe hires a few people, or he puts out a quest thing going, hey, I'm looking for, and hire people, or hey, I'm looking for someone to do this with me, or maybe they're part of a guild and they can go back and go, hey, look, man, this thing is more than I thought. I really need to get somebody to help me. And then that way you can add a character to your adventure, get through it. And then if you feel like, oh, wow, I just ran 2 or 3 characters and that really wasn't too bad, and you want to continue the adventure, you can. But if not, you have a reason for them to drop out. And and so whatever you do in your game, don't feel like you have to um, cheat yourself or cheat the game or whatever, because one of the things that's different about Shadow Dark is that it doesn't have like how many appear, right? So it just not like an older D&D adventure. I don't know if that has it in here. I'm looking. Yeah, here it goes. So it has. This is Slave Pits of the Undercity, and this is going to be part of my next video when I'm going to talk about soloing older adventure modules. I picked this up at RPG Week day. One of my local stores, he gets in um, a lot of old stuff, and he had A2 and A4, and I went ahead and ordered A1 and 3 so that I could um, fill out the series. And so as I got this one and I started reading it, I played this. This thing came out in 1980. I remember having this, playing this when I was 10 or 11 years old. But um, and I was reading through it because it was built as a tournament module. So you have different ways to play it. You can play it as a tournament module, or you can play it as a straight up adventure, and they have it in here both ways. And I thought it was really cool. And the person I bought this for sent me an old Dungeons and Dragons sheet, highlights an adventure sheet, and a adventure record sheet, which is kind of cool. But when I was looking through this, I was reading it. There's two maps in here. There's a tournament map where it takes away. I'm showing too much of this, but I'm going to do my next thing on it. But it takes part of the adventure away. The map away so that you can do it as a tournament, because the tournament is basically how far you can get in a certain amount of time. And then you get scoring and points. But anyway, as I was rolling through this, I was like, wow, this could be a very cool Shadow Dark adventure. I really thought, I'm going to talk about this later. So if you want to see my next video after this, it's going to be on this module. But anyway, I grabbed this module for a reason, and I can be scatterbrained. But in it, it shows, it has the monsters. And so in old D&D, if you grab the monster manual, it will say number of appearing 2 to 20, 3 to 30, or 1, very rare, and how many. And it's the same thing here, like the Giant Sunday, number appearing 1 to 4. And so, you could roll and see how many appear. Well, in here, there's not. I mean, it's just, there's nowhere on here how many appear. So you do have the flexibility in Shadow Dark to pick how many come and be, and she does have a use one-to-one monster table, and so it has it right here. It has, if your party level, it has, what monster level you should be, what level your character should be fighting against. And so you're able to, adjust these type of things. It's here, but it also says, note that large groups of monsters, even with low levels, can be deadly because they take many more actions each round in the character. Conversely, a solo monster can be too easily, even with a high level, if the characters can swarm it. So, it's about, you have the flexibility almost in the game to change how you want to, what your characters can, and, also you can always feel, and this is probably a Professor Dungeon Master way to look at it, or other gamers like Runehammer and stuff, you can change, if you want. If it's a level 6 mage, you can switch it down to level 3, take out some spells and lower their hit points and make it, adjust it. Anything that you feel like, but she has mage in here, and then I think there's apprentice, so it makes it easier to switch, at a lower level. But I wish they were all in the same place. All the humanoids were in the same place. I think that would be really good. So you have cultists, and then I think it's just an apprentice in here that's a lower level, level 1. Then you have the archmage. So you have the ability to do that. But really, the heart about this video and what it will be about is that when you play, don't be worried about if it's one character or 4, and don't feel like, hey, if I have to do one character, I'm cheating myself. I don't want to. I can make the adventure. I want to play the adventure without, with the highest, with danger level. I don't want to change anything. But you would just, again, your character, if he was in real life, he would choose, unless it's an adventure that he has to go on and he has to do, and he has to figure out ways around it. And that's another thing. If you create your dungeon, like when I do my dungeons and I create my Shadow Dark maps, I go ahead and fill out my whole room, my whole dungeon. So that way I'm able to adjust my dungeon for my characters. But if you build, like some people build their adventure randomly, like, they go in the door and then they're going to roll as they go. And if you're not able to adjust on the fly, then you are going to run into um, a scenario where the monsters on encounter might be too difficult for them. Um, and so that's one of the reasons that I build out my adventure, and I can look at it overall and I can kind of go, is this an adventure that one person can make? One character can solo, or is it going to be one that will have to have multiple characters? And so, but if I build it, let's say I'm just going to play a solo character, and probably as going forward, I'm about to, like I've told y'all numerous times, I'm working on a new one of these, and I keep going back and forth. And so what I might have to do is just play one and put it out there and just see, and then adjust it as I go. That's just the best way for me to do stuff. But if I decide in my next campaign, I guess you'd call it, I'm just going to do one character instead of doing multiple ones, then, or maybe two characters. When I build my map, I'm going to adjust for two characters because that's just the way it is. And if I feel like I have to, then I can get my hireling. But that's one of the reasons why when I build my adventures, and you can go back and look at any of my sessions when I build an adventure, or my video on how to build a Shadow Dark adventure, I build it all out and I look at it all so that I know what my characters are going into. And, in that way, yeah, it takes away some of the surprise, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I'm playing an adventure. I don't want it to be like in the middle of my adventure, I got to go back to town and get some people, because I don't want to role play or play that part. But if that's part of what you want to do, because you want to, like I said, keep that realism to it, it's like, man, I'm in over my head and I have to go back. But that's part of what you like to do, and that's part of your session. Then go ahead and do that. That's what it means. That's what I mean by having a little sense of realism in your game. And that's really what I do. So I just thought I'd do a quick video. I thought it was a very good topic on the Shadow Dark. So if you are a Shadow Dark player, solo Dark player, and you want to um, uh, comment on those things, go onto the Discord or comment below if the ways that you have figured out how to how you run your game, solo, party. What are some of the tricks and stuff that you do? But like I said, mine always just evolves around realism. And so anyway, short video tonight. This will be my next video. I'm going to walk through how I would change, what I would do to this game to make it go with Shadow Dark. How I would take a module and turn it into a Shadow Dark adventure. So that'll be next one. It'll probably be sometime next week. So everyone, have a good night.